Hey guys, thank you for being on our hangout tonight. I'm Brent.
I'm Julie.
We're the Frenches. We're Emerald Ambassadors with Plexus Worldwide, and we are coming to you live from Pensacola, Florida. And it does not feel like December, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It has been so warm here. We are just ready for some cool weather to move in. I'm afraid if we don't get cool weather soon, the summer's going to be bad with the bugs. But hey, this is Florida, so you gotta expect that sometime. We've had an awesome day today, didn't we? We have the privilege of working at a church here in Pensacola, and we had our Spirit of Christmas service, and we had Kevin Sorbo as our special guest. For those of you who maybe don't know who he is, he was Hercules on the TV show Hercules and played in God's Not Dead, and we're just thrilled that he was with us for today. Had a lot of people accept Christ, and that was great. Well, tonight I am so excited about our guest, aren't you?
Yes.
We had the privilege of hearing Troy Dooley at the first convention that we ever went to in New Orleans, and he just rocked our world with how he handles things with network marketing. He's actually a local guy for the Gulf Coast. He's in Destin, Florida. He's lived in Destin since the year 2000. I think he said that he had come down for vacation, and then he ended up sticking. So that's awesome. We're privileged to have him in our area. But one thing that I love about Troy is that he loves Plexus. He loves Plexus, and he's just been a great supporter for our leadership with Plexus. We had the opportunity to have him at convention again in Phoenix this year, and it was just fabulous. I had the opportunity to share in a breakout session with him, and Troy is the real dude, man. He is just he's known as the Beachside CEO, and we're just honored to have him. Troy, thank you so much for being on our hangout tonight.
Hey, I'm blessed to be here. I tell you what, when you guys asked me to do this, it's like, oh, this is awesome, So it is my honor to be here.
Well, I have to give kudos to Lindalen, because Lindalen was the one that reached out to you and secured you for tonight. So Lindalen, thank you so much for reaching out to Troy and getting him on our hangout tonight.
You know it.
You know it. Well, Troy, we're coming to the end of 2015, and a lot of things have happened in our company in the last few months that have kind of made people a little nervous. When we did our total changeover of our back office, and I know that you wanted to share a little bit towards that, but you're going to talk tonight about change your story and change your life. So if you don't mind, we're just going to throw it your way and let you take it for tonight.
Hey, that'd be great. How long do I have? You tell me.
We have till 8:30.
Till 8:30. That'd be perfect. I think we can do this. Guys, I have seen, because we watch constantly what's going on at Plexus. I talk with the guys behind the scenes. I talk to a lot of the leaders at different levels, not just diamonds, but we've met so many of you over the years that when there's a hiccup, and let's just be realistic, sometimes companies have hiccups, I usually hear about it. And when they asked me to be on tonight, I thought, what is it that I would want to hear? What is it that would help me out as I go into 2016? And that's why I titled this, Change Your Story, Change Your Life, because so many times, and you'll get what I'm talking about, we'll go through something. Maybe it's a text message from a downline. Maybe it's a competitor that's on Facebook, and they're writing something, and because we're seeing it and we're not necessarily hearing the tonality of their voice, all of a sudden our brain starts saying, well, they're being negative, or well, they're talking about me, or maybe you see something even in Plexus where somebody's having such success, and you're thinking to yourself, well, there's no way I can do that. I don't have the education. I'm a single mom. I'm a dad without a job. I mean, these are the voices that we hear. And I want you guys to realize tonight, 99% of the time, those voices that we're hearing in our head, that's not us. That's our mom, our dad, our grandma, our grandpa, our best friend. That's somebody that we didn't get along with at school, and all of that stuff we've just accumulated up there. And whenever we go through a similar situation, all of a sudden, that's what we hear. We don't take the time to really sit down and say, that's not my story. That's not the way I am. That's not who I have to be. So, we're going to go through, and because we've got a little bit of time, I'm going to throw this at you guys, and maybe this year, if Plexus has me in, we'll do the full-blown training on this, and you guys will get even more. But I want you to write down some stuff as we go through this, because I think at the end of the night, you guys will be able to leave here and be able to say, okay, I can take this and apply it in my life to make this change. And that's what I want to do. The way we interpret the stories that we have, I think, really resonates with where we go forward. I'm going to use one as an example with myself. And if you guys were at convention, you heard me share a little bit about my background. But if I was to come to you and say, you know what, my life was really hard growing up. I grew up in a 900 square foot home. When it rained, the basement would flood. My dad was never home. My mom beat me. That's a whole different story than if I say, we lived in the nicest small little house. We had a barbecue out back. My dad on the weekends, we would cook out every night. I didn't have a TV, so I learned to read. And I'd end up with awards in the summertime where I'd read 50 to 60 books as a child. See, the way we tell stories to ourselves and the way we tell stories to others impacts that adrenaline that's in our body, our nervous system. And when you guys go through issues like you've gone through in the last couple of months at Plexus, where all of a sudden you have this new back office, beautiful back office, but things don't work. When all of a sudden you're in, and all of a sudden you say, well, my people didn't get their order, or my downline's calling me frustrated. All of that gets internalized, and it's how you internalize it. So what I want you to do, number one, from this point forward, instead of just thinking about all this stuff, start writing every bit of it down. Every time you go through a situation, maybe it's a downline, maybe you don't even have a downline. You're just saying, oh my gosh, I want a downline, but what I'm hearing scares me. Write it down, because this is your business. And if you start writing down how you're feeling, here's what's going to happen. And this is the fun part, because I do this. Here's what happens. You start to look at what you're writing and realize, okay, I've really been exacerbating this situation, because this isn't going to happen. This isn't even what's happening. And you start to realize very quickly, hey, you know what? I can make it through this challenge. I can roll through this thing. Because inside of us, we have, well, I'll tell you, God gave us free will. But what he doesn't do is tell us how we can interpret that free will. We just internalize all this stuff, and we decide, okay, I'm just going to become a dull, negative, disillusioned crybaby. I'm just going to wind them upline. I'm going to wind them a downline. I'm just going to sit here in the house, and I'm not going to do anything. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to try to log into the back office, because I can't. I mean, that's it. Now, I'm going to tell you, I got somebody in my life that since March wasn't able to log into her back office. But her downline would tell her what was going on. And every time she'd get on the phone, because she's a busy mom, she'd be on hold, and she'd have to get off hold. But it didn't stop her from talking about Plexus and building her downline, even though she couldn't get into her back office. Now, if that person can do it, you can do it. See, it's all how you look at it. She knows the products at Plexus work for her. And because of that, she's still talking about it, even though she still can't get in her back office. But yet she's turned in the tickets. But she's not a diamond or an emerald or any of that. She's just a normal, everyday person. Does she get frustrated? Absolutely. But is she letting it hold her up? No. And when I said, what is it that keeps you going? She said, Troy, I know the products will help the people. So if I can't get in my back office, it doesn't matter. They can still get in theirs. And that's what it is. So number one, you've got to be able to realize what you're thinking and write it down. Now, a lot of people these days say, Troy, I don't like to write. I don't keep a journal. What should I do? Well, you can, if you're, depends on if you're on Apple or not, but you can either use Evernote, which is a great free service. It's wonderful. I use it all the time. Or you can use Day One. I think it's day1app.com, and it's a journal. And if you're on Apple, it works really, really good. If you're on Windows, it may not. But these are two ways that if you're a techie, you can do it. And I mean, it's on my phone. And I know every morning when I get up, because I get up between 5 and 5:30, my phone has a notification, Troy, you need to journal. And I can journal. I can put a picture in there. I can go through what I'm doing. This is so important, because most of us go through life never doing that. Guys, I've told Brent and everybody, here's what I do. October 1st, I start slowing down, and I take 90 days and I start reflecting on where the year's been. And it's easy for me to do on October 1st because usually I'm in Atlanta and I'm working a leadership conference called Catalyst. And that's just the time of my life where I know, okay, I've got to go through this. This year we have lined up what we're going to be doing in 2016. But here's something else I've done. I looked back and realized not everything this year went as planned. Not everything this year turned out the way I wanted it to. What do I need to do to make a change? Now, most of you know when I speak, my faith is going to roll into this, so if y'all don't believe the way I do, you don't have to use this part. But I constantly say, Lord, what do I need to learn from this? You know, I've gone through a lot of stuff. I know I listened sometimes, probably got too busy and didn't hear it the other time, so help me line up. So I try to guide. I run by my faith, so that moves me forward. If you don't have that, just start meditating and figuring out where the heck you're at, because no matter where we're at, we're human, and if we will focus on something, we'll be able to get where we're going. Now, somebody asked me, why are stories so important anyway? What's the big deal? Troy, why can't I just go through listening to the voices in my mind? I believe they're mine, and I know that they're there because I see it on TV. They got the little devil and the little angel, so it must be real. That's just the way it is. And it sort of is, except here's what happens. If you constantly tell yourself the wrong thing, then it becomes your reality. So if you're going through here and your foundation isn't right, then what you think you know isn't correct, and you're leading yourself down the wrong path. And I'll use a story that Stephen Covey used in one of his books. And it was a gentleman that got on a train, and he was wanting to read a book, and he started to open the book up and read it, but these two little kids were just going like banshees all over the place, and their dad was just sitting there looking down. And this gentleman, this professor who's trying to read, is thinking to himself, this has got to be the worst parent under the sun. Doesn't he see what his kids are doing? They're running around, they're banging into people, and finally he looked over at the dad and said, excuse me. He goes, your kids are being a nuisance. Can you do something? And the young man looked at him and he said, I truly apologize. He said, their mom died today, and this is just their way of trying to live this out, and I'm sorry. Now see, the professor thought he was a bad parent because he didn't have all the facts. So when you sit here and tell yourself these stories that aren't true, because maybe you're just having a bad day. Maybe your mom or your dad or somebody in the past said you're never going to amount to anything. Maybe they tell you can't trust companies, man. If companies screw it up, you need to run because it's them against us. I mean, I grew up in a union family. Trust me. I knew about companies versus the people. I mean, that was the way it was. So it was one of those things. We get ourselves so engrossed with this stuff that by the time we become adults, by the time we're in business for ourselves, we've got so much that's fiction, that's not reality, that when you take the time to write it down, you'd be just like that guy on the train. All of a sudden, you'll realize, I didn't have all the facts. I'm sitting here looking at my own life, and I can be somebody. I can do this. I can learn how to react through challenges that a company's going to have, because any company you're with, and I've told some of the diamonds this, just because you have a trouble here and you don't think anybody else has trouble, you're wrong. I did a video because companies are going to change formula. Companies are going to change back offices. Companies are going to add products and then take them away because they don't work. You're going to have a downline that's, man, they've just the greatest person, probably a CEO in a company somewhere, and they're going to come in here and they're going to fail. It's just all this stuff's going to happen. It doesn't matter. What matters is if you continue to write your story, don't live in the past but learn from your past, and you keep writing this down and focusing on this, then in 2016, if you just take the time to say, here's where I started in January of 15, here's where I want to be in January of 2016, then you're going to be able to see I have a growth pattern. I grew a little bit. I'm doing something. And that's the name of the game. Here's something I want you to do. I want you to change the way you look at some of the stories you tell yourself. If you're sitting there and you're one of these people that that when everything goes wrong, you say, why me? And I want you to stop asking your question, why me? This is a small thing, but I think you'll start to see. Instead of asking yourself, why me, say, what can I learn from this? How can I apply this? If you start changing just the little things, you start to grow in what you're doing. Thomas Edison was this way. Failed over 1,000 times trying to create the original light bulb, which I love, the rabbit trail. You know, you can go buy that original light bulb at Home Depot right now. Now, it only lasts for a year, but it's pretty cool. Okay, literally 1,000 different times to get it right. But every time he was learning something. See, we think that failure is so oh, gosh, I failed. I screwed it up. Nobody's going to follow me. Nobody's going to listen to me. Nobody cares if you fail. Matter of fact, if you're not failing at something, you're probably not doing anything. So don't worry about messing it up a little bit. Okay, everybody does it. CEOs do it, to the leaders in the field. Everybody's going to make a mistake. It doesn't matter. What can I learn from this? How can I apply this? Because, see, somebody that you're going to go in contact with is going to go through the same thing. And if you can train them, if you can coach them, if you can teach them that, hey, it's okay, here's what I learned from that. Now you're helping them, and that's the key. That's what we want to do. Number two, you want to evaluate. You want to evaluate whether your current story is hindering you or enhancing you. And here's what I mean by that. Some of us who have gone through this for so many years catch ourselves faster when we start to have that poor me attitude. We start to say, oh, crap, man, here I go again. I can't do that. I got to get refocused. I need to pray. I need to call my accountability partner. I need to do something. But if you evaluate where you're at, and I mean every part of your life right now, everything that your brain is telling you, I'm underpaid, I'm overpaid, I'm overqualified, I can't find a job, nobody's saying yes to me at Plexus, you know, the people that said yes, doggone it, they quit, you know, all that stuff, every bit of it, just write it down, you know, and don't talk about it yet, just write down what happened to you. Well, I brought in so-and-so and they quit. I got so-and-so, she lost 5 pounds and then she gained back 10 and she quit. You know, you write everything down and then start looking, okay, what can I learn from this? Is it enhancing my life? Is this something positive? Or is this something negative? I have a young lady that I met in a different company. She's she just turned 32 and she has Crohn's disease. And it was a company that's floundering. They're not even a third of the size of Plexus. But she fell in love with their product. And she was using her product because it helped her with her Crohn's. And because it's not a Plexus product, I'm not making a health claim, so I can say this. Okay, here's the deal. Okay, see, I even do disclosures for myself on these things. Here's the deal. This is the great part. She heard me speak at a conference. She's no longer doing that business, but she called me on the phone and she said, you told me not to wallow in self-pity. And she goes, I'm working with a fitness company out of New Orleans. I'm doing some modeling with them, and they're going to help me show that even though you have Crohn's disease, that you don't have to be laying down all the time, you don't have to be a victim. And she goes, we're going to try to help other people. You never know what you're going through, what one little thing that you say to somebody can do to change their life. But it's your story, and if your story's worse than theirs, oh, poor me, poor me. And some of you guys have heard my story. I mean, it's not the prettiest story under the sun, but I never let it keep me down. And the one part of my story that would really be the catalyst would be when my mom sat by my bed and opened up a Bible story, and it was called Knock Out the T. And it was all about the only difference between can and can't is the T. And I never forgot that, even though my dad wasn't the best dad in the world, I didn't grow up in the best home, a lot of violence, I always remembered I can do anything that I set my mind to. So even when I'm going through the worst part, the Lord will bring back that story of that little boy who said, I'm going to knock out the T so I can do it. And that's what I want you guys to get. You can do this, no matter how hard, no matter how frustrating, no matter how much it sucks. And some days we just don't even want to get out of bed. But if you do it, sky's the limit on where you'll be able to go. And I'm going to close out with just a couple things here because I don't want to keep y'all on this. You've got to write down your story from start to finish. You need to write down from your earliest time that you can remember. And you don't want to write it down, oh, I was just run over by a snow train. Oh, no. Here's what you want to do. You want to write down, here's where I lived. Here's what I went through. Here's those memorable moments. Here's what I wanted. Brent talked about we moved down in 2000. In 1990, I came to Destin for the very first time. We stayed at the Sun Destin Towers. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. Paige had a blast. Dalton was I mean, he was a baby in our arms. And she looked out on the north side of the condo that looked over the bay. And she said, you know what would be awesome, honey, is if our home, if we could move here someday and our home would look up here at this tower and I could remember where our first night was. Now, I wrote that down in my brain. I just kept it. And then I started from 1990 to 2000. Actually, it was going to be 95, but Opal came through, kind of screwed the whole plans up, so we had to wait another 5 years. Okay, so for 10 years, I'm writing down what my perfect day would be if I was living on the Emerald Coast, what my family would do, how we would have a blast. I wrote it down. Now, I'm going to tell you, my perfect day never turned out that way. In a lot of ways, it turned out better. And it did turn out less expensive than what my perfect day was written down as, I'll tell you that too. But our house, she can look out off the back porch, and she can see that condo every night with that light because the Lord just worked it out where our house has nothing. One sand dune, and there's the condo, and we can see it. You know, our perfect day, if you ever call me and get my phone, it'll say, hey, I'm either going down the beach with Paige or I'm with my kids. And that's usually what we're doing, okay, because that's the way life turned out. Our house isn't the biggest house in Destin, but you know what? We can afford to live here. Okay, so everything worked out because we wrote down what we wanted. And man, don't let anything keep you. Dream as big as you want to dream. Just realize you have to change the pattern. Once you start to change the pattern in your mind, then all of a sudden the sky's the limit on what you can do. When you sit here and you look, and I'm going to go back to my Bible days a little bit. When you look at what the Lord did, this is Christmas, so I'm going to use him as an example. This is a perfect example. Here's a lady who's a teen, was out one night, had this long, drawn-out conversation with a stranger, and the next morning realized she was going to have to tell the guy she's married to that, hey, I'm going to have a baby. Now, that's a really weird conversation to have when it's a Jewish community. First of all, it's not America today. So, I mean, here, that could have screwed the whole thing up. She could have, oh, I'm not going to say anything. Nobody's going to believe me. They're all going to. She went and did exactly what she was told to do and started a story. Jesus. Now, forget about the Son of God part just for a second. Let's just look at the human side. He was the son of a lady, but the dad wasn't really his dad. I mean, he could have gotten all kinds of stuff when he was a kid, oh, making fun of him, and yeah, sure, your mommy had it with an angel, right. I mean, think about this for a minute. Let's just realistic. The story was kind of weird, but yet he didn't let that hold him back either. He said, I believe what my mom said. I believe that I'm the Son of God. I believe that I'm supposed to do this. Joseph believed. So if you write it down, if you start to focus on what it is you really want, what your real story is, not what the circumstance. We can't change our circumstances. We can only change how we want to interpret those circumstances. Either we look at it with the glass half empty, or we look at it that the glass half full. The choice is yours. But as you're going into 2016, you've got a brand new slate ahead of you. You get to decide, come January 1 to December 31st, what do I want to accomplish in my life, in my Plexus business, helping those around me? And I would go as far as to say this. If you don't know what your true purpose in life is, then you start to do that today. You can email me on Facebook or whatever we call that, private message me, I guess, and I'll be happy to give you some things to be able to figure out what your purpose is. Brent, I guarantee you, Brent can help you get your purpose. Okay, you can figure this out, because if you know what your purpose is come January 1, everything else will start to line up throughout that year, because you'll be driven by one purpose. You'll know that if that doesn't help, oh, I got to get rid of that decision. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, that's a bad thought, because you're going to be focused on what you were really created to accomplish. That's going to be the fun part. So, Brent, back to you, my friend.
Man, that was fabulous. Love the part, especially at the end we're talking about. You can't change your circumstances, but it's how you look at it and how you make it work for you. You know, because we all have different things that we're trying to work through in our life, and you know, our circumstances may not be great in certain areas, but if we look at them differently, we can focus and blow through it and go forwards. And I also love the part, knock out the T. That's awesome. You know, and just when you say I can't do it, just knock out that T and go forward and, you know, be blessed. Well, Troy, we were totally honored to have you tonight on our hangout, and we pray God's blessings for you and for your business with Beachside CEO and all that you do. And thank you so much for how you reach out to, you know, honestly, you know, you could have been doing 1,000 different things tonight, but you took 30 minutes, 45 minutes of your time just to reach out to help us, and that means more to us than you will ever know. So, brother, we appreciate that so much, and thank you for your love for Plexus, and we appreciate it. If you don't mind, we always close out our hangout with prayer, and I'm going to pray and ask God to bless your business and all, and Plexus. Father, thank you for the opportunity that we had to have Troy on our hangout tonight. And Lord, thank you for such an encouragement that he is to our team personally, but Lord, in the bigger picture and the broader base to our company, Plexus. Lord, thank you that he takes time with our ambassadors, Lord, that he takes time with our executives, and Lord, he helps pour into our businesses. Lord, I pray that you'd bless him and his family in a special way. Lord, thank you for them. Lord, I pray that you would continue to put your hand of blessing upon our company. And Lord, I pray for our executives that you would bless them as they make decisions. And Lord, as we transition from 2015 into 2016, Lord, I pray that you'd help us to take these things that he's laid out for us tonight. Lord, help them to apply them to our business. And Lord, help us to have the greatest year ever in our businesses. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Guys, thank you so much for being on our hangout tonight. We hope that you have a Merry Christmas. And it's just, man, it is here before we know it. What, less than 2 weeks away, you know, Christmas is going to be gone. It's going to be here and gone, and we're going to be starting that new year. So we appreciate you being on. Troy, again, thank you. Lyndalyn, thank you tonight. God bless you guys. Have a great evening.